Bases 2016, this is the first one on the runway. This is the opening of the conference on Friday, and we're commencing with the issue about Max Spiers. It was a great deal of shock on the build-up to the conference that Max, who was scheduled to speak at the conference in Pusey, and he didn't make it. Events led up to this. There are a number of very well done interviews with Max in Warsaw, staying at the lovely home of Monica Duval, who had taken him on board. And a lot of things were happening, a lot of positive things. There was a very good photograph with Max, with Stuart Sverdlow and Monica, promoting Stuart's book. It's interesting that when I downloaded that photograph onto my computer for a lecture in St. Anne's-on-Sea later on in the year, that photograph disappeared from my presentation. Anyway, the idea was to simply discuss and go over the events that led up to Max's death. Taj was Tajinder, who's one of the moderators on the Bases Project closed group, was dealing with a lot of the background as well. He's been doing his own investigations, and he dealt a lot with Sarah. Unfortunately, Sarah had been specifically requested not to be at the conference by Max. Things had changed between Sarah and Max, and this was very uncomfortable for Sarah, so it was very awkward. Upon discussing this with Vanessa, Max's mother, she was then allowed to be at the conference. So there was a great deal of feeling going on, difficult things happening. So essentially the first section of the conference on the Friday was to deal with the death of Max Spiers. We will be including a number of clips from those Warsaw interviews. They were shown live at the time, just to give a sneak to the audience if anybody hadn't seen some of those events. We're only going to give a couple of brief clips on this edit, but it's just to give you a basic flavour as to what was going on. So this is Bases 2016 about the death of Max Spiers in this first section with Tajinder and Sarah Adams. Bases 2016.
Okay, gentlemen, ladies, this has been a bit of a rough start, a bit late, but the very reason why we're even starting this early is because very, very serious, catastrophic and terrible events have happened involving one of our speakers, Max Spiers. And I need an envelope, okay? There's an envelope up there, down there. Right, the basic issue with Max Spiers is his basic claim to fame is that he's one of the so-called super soldiers involved with the British and the Americans and most other countries involved with this sort of technology. This is an interdimensional war outside the so-called three-dimensional space we think we're living in, right? This involves involuntary use of implants, and we have another gentleman here in this room called Dave Marrow, who's very brave and part of this program, and it's a supreme privilege to have Dave come here in the audience today. This is a really important event. The basic people we're talking about here is a guy called James Casbolt, who's in jail, and Max Spiers is intricately involved with why he's in jail, and it involves an extremely rich family in the United States called the Mayers. He married, that's to say, James Casbolt married into that family. There was a divorce, it got very messy, and he's in jail. But about 2 or 3 weeks ago, or a month ago, his appeal for the very long sentence he had was successful, and James should be back out in the free world around about in 18 months. Very soon after that, Max Spiers, who spoke with me in Poland, and Kieran Lee Perrin. Kieran Lee Perrin is part of the British Targeted Individuals program. He's got implants inside his head. These are things you can actually see and measure with radio frequency measurements, magnetic and electric field measurements. You can see them with MRI scans. Lots and lots and lots of people now have these implants in their head, and we've discovered means of tracking them and actually dealing with them. Now, Dave Marrow was one of the first who, with another colleague of mine called Matthew Todd, actually recorded very high levels of marine band frequency energy coming from the implant. Now, before I really get going, because we have been dealing with an awful lot of targeting, there's been an awful lot of people fall by the wayside right up to like this morning. Christine Joanna Hart is very ill and she cannot do her presentation today, but we have a colleague of hers who will. So because of this thing called targeting, which is energetic or psychotronic methodologies of energetically causing a lot of harm and difficulty, we're going to deal with that with Miriam Jans, and then I will open this envelope. Okay, Miriam Jans from Holland, she's a healer, and we've understood that she can actually track implants. As I track them with a meter, Miriam can pick up where they are. However, in order to dispel some of the energetics which may or may not be targeted to this conference, we're able to dispel that, and Miriam's very good at doing that. So Miriam will do her bit, and then I will continue.
Thank you, Miles, for allowing me to open my way. I'm Miriam Jansen. I'm from Amsterdam. I'm a healer, clairaudient, claircognizant, and I work with TIs and ET energy and working with all kinds of people to make them understand what's happening. Right now, I can say, also through my work, but also through personal experience, that there's a lot happening on any thinkable level. And we are hardly able to capture how many levels are involved. I had the pleasure to meet, for instance, Dave. I'm so happy to see you again. And it's very important that these kind of gatherings happen. I'm very grateful for you coming here, and I'm asking you, the last time I did, I grounded the whole place. We cleared the place, grounded the place, and said, okay, you ground yourself. For now, because of everything that's happening on a daily basis, it's the shifts, the energies are so intense to targeting everybody that it's very important for you, I don't know if you're going to be there tomorrow or Sunday as well, to protect yourself, and even in a very intentional way. So when you protect yourself, it's really just think of protecting yourself in the old-fashioned way, but know that whatever is happening, whenever you feel like, wow, this is really getting to me, protect yourself, because it's with all the messages that are coming across, there's a lot of charge being released right now, this weekend, the last few weeks, and the coming few weeks. So it's very important that you know that you have to keep your feet on the ground and take care of yourself right now. The best service you can do for others is take really good care of yourself. I will talk about how and what on Sunday, and Miles, it's up to you again. Thank you so much. Keep it in mind, but keep it in your heart mainly. Okay, thank you.
If you give that to... Speaker will be replacing, as an addition, as suggested by Christine Joanna Hart. Okay, now the situation is, I was speaking at the Awake and Aware conference with Kerry Cassidy and Passing Clouds about, 4 weeks ago, July, whatever the heck it was. And I had my mobile phone off, and that Saturday afternoon, I switched it back on, suddenly got these text messages that Max is dead. Now, to put this into context, this is the second time I'd spoken at a very, very awakened and very advanced thinking Polish conference in Warsaw. I'd spoken last November, some time ago, and again in July, and it was a tremendous privilege to be flown out there. They're very, very advanced in Poland. They're really ahead. They're very eager to know about very advanced information. They are extremely well informed. I'd also been talking to a very brilliant publisher there, a lady called Monica Duval, and she is very interested in the Bases project and the idea of getting the Bases project into written text and to get it in many different languages, because the Bases project is all about finding new information which at the time is often completely ludicrous and you cannot believe any of it. And I tell people, do not believe any of this information. You've got to just see what it is and take it on board and move on. I was asked back there, and I was there with Max, and this was Max's very, very first presentation on his own. And Max had also appeared on the Bases project several times with Sarah. Sarah is here in the audience, and Sarah and Max have been very, very close for a long period of time. But in recent months, things have gone to hell in a handbasket. There's no real way of saying it. Things have been unpleasant. Difficult things are happening. Personal things, very, very strong feelings. So this is a really big issue. Now, the other thing that was there was, what's his name? Magnus Olsson from UCASH, which is the European Committee Against the Abuse of Covert Technology. So this has been organized on a much wider scale, but they don't want to deal with ETs. The difference is that the targeted individual movements basically split into two basic areas. Those who do say the implants are alien, and those who say that the implants or whatever is, or targeting, is done by nefarious human activity. The bottom line is the ETs are with us, they're all around us, all doing all sorts of things, conniving, stabbing everybody in the back, in the good old-fashioned way of duplicitous double standards and backstabbing and double crossing. So the humans aren't that much different. So Max did a very good presentation, and he decided to stay in Poland. And for the last 2.5 months he was there, and then that day he was going to speak today, or he was actually going to speak tomorrow, and he promised me a really sensational presentation. He was about to name names and start spilling the beans, because I'd criticized him heavily that maybe some of his stuff was borrowed, or it was based on other people's information. But he was regurgitating, he was giving us information which was absolutely cutting edge, right up to the level of the head human that was here. And he appeared with me on a Channel 4 documentary called The Great UFO Conspiracy, which is the second Channel 4 documentary which has been into the UFO side of things. I don't want to get on too long and do my own presentation. The point is that Max was staying with Monica Duval, and she's a very, very fine lady, wonderful in every way. And the other lady, the two men core people who organized the conference, was, Danucha Sharma and Madeline Namro. And they'd been to this conference. They're from Poland. They're involved with the media over there, and they'd done a great job. But at the conference, there was already the difficulties, and then that conference broke up, and they completely broke up as such. So Max did a very good job, and then things started to change. There was an involvement with Stuart Sverdlow, and I'd hoped to have Stuart Sverdlow at this conference, but really I want to have a much bigger event for Stuart. He's a big deal. Now, so there's something involved with Max and Stuart Sverdlow. Stuart Sverdlow is a Russian-American, or that's to say he's a Russian origin, lives in America, and he's involved with mind control, the Montauk Project, and other such things. His family founded the KGB, so we're dealing with pretty hot stuff. There's an involvement here with Stuart. We're not too sure why or what really is going on there, but he's involved. On that Saturday afternoon, I got the text message saying Max is dead. I then did a shout-out. There was an urgent shout-out to find his mother, which we did. And finally, around about about 11 o'clock at night, Max was reconfirmed dead. He was dead by about 4 o'clock, allegedly, on that afternoon. And then there was some hope they were going to be doing some kind of work on Max, or some kind of, what are they talking about? Is the guy either dead or not dead? The guy had been coughing up black blood or liquid. He was extremely sick, and this had all been recorded. And Taj will be playing an example of one of those recordings as Max starts speaking all to the polls, and none of the characters in all of this are coming out in any way which is logical. You've got a person who's dead, yet they don't bring him to hospital. They refuse access to medical help. So something really odd is happening here, and for that reason, myself and Kerry Cassidy went together. We put on a show together and essentially said that there is cause for considerable concern over the death of Max Spiers. So, I don't know your name, sir.
It's Paul. Paul
Paul,
Stevenson.
hello, okay, hello, Paul. Well, that's it from
Can I use
me.
this for notes? Sure.
Give you Paul.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Stevenson. I am a researcher. I have a radio show on Revolution Radio, which is the same show as Christine's. Christine asked me to come down. As Miles said, it was going to be more of an addition, probably a little bit off topic for this conference. I'm actually not as familiar with the Bases projects and Max Spiers as much as probably all of you are here. But as I say, I do a lot of research. I mean, I'm totally convinced, by the way, of MK Ultra. I've read various different books on MK Ultra. I'm totally convinced of it. Although I would say I was studying more about MK Ultra about 3 years ago, and I kind of got off to more, I suppose, earthly issues of geopolitics. And I'm going to try and outline some of that today. But I'm very aware of Christine's story, and I'm very sympathetic towards the whole situation with MK Ultra and what this conference is about. And I think, what I'm going to be talking about as well is very important, I think. And basically, it's funny because as soon as I don't really know how I ended up speaking here, because Christine on Tuesday, I was supposed to come down and talk to Christine, or sort of be here with Christine, and just watch. And then she asked me, or it came about that I was speaking here. And, since about Tuesday, there's been so much stuff has kicked off on Tuesday that, Christine hasn't made it. I don't know how I made it here, because it's just been one problem after the other. As I say, I would probably parse things out in a more traditional biblical way. I'm a Christian. I believe in the demonic realm. Paul the Apostle said, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers and against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places." It's certainly not my intention to convince anybody of my worldview, but just to say I believe that the enemies of mankind are spiritual. But the topic that I intend talking about today is world Zionism and international Jewry. It's a very controversial topic. It usually results, for people who expose the Zionist conspiracy or talk about it, it invariably ends up with shortened lives, sacrificed careers, increased persecution, increased, slander, decrease in income, and generally just destroyed reputations. And to me, that is evidence that this is certainly, I believe Zionism is the engine of what we would call the New World Order. They have all the power in the right places. I like to demonstrate any kind of conspiracy with as much hard facts as I can, with where the evidence actually points to where it's ostensibly the case. I was speaking to people here earlier today. There was a lot of talk about Zionism when we were outside, so hopefully you'll find this useful. As I say, I think it's a very important topic. It's very, very controversial, and I just want to, basically quote a lot of people down through history to show that this conspiracy is not new. And also, I want to look a little bit at the Greater Israel, the Oded Yinon plan for Greater Israel, which outlines in their own writings what all the wars in the Middle East are about, where we have 100 million deaths and souls perished, since 9/11. There's no doubt in my mind 9/11 was a Mossad operation. They had all the motivation and they had the resources. And since 9/11, it's just been total misery, chaos, murder, maiming, bloodshed in the Middle East in the name of democracy spreading. And the Zionists get the US and the NATO allies soldiers to go and fight their wars. And I think this needs to be exposed. In America, we have 35 million brainwashed Christians who have blind support for Israel because of an infiltration by the Zionists and the Talmudics, I like to call them, because whether we can call these people Jews or not, the Bible says that they are not Jews, but they are the synagogue of Satan, and they sign on to the Talmud, which is one of the most racist, supremacist books, and their ideology in the Talmud, which is taught in the synagogues from when they're knee height, is that they are God's chosen people and that they have a right to rule, and that they basically, the goyim, that's you and me, the animals, are made only to serve them. Their intention is to cut our numbers down. This is why we have all sorts of efforts to reduce world population, with wars, with GMO foods, with pharmaceuticals. They basically want to get rid of us. There's too many of us. They don't need all of us to serve them. And they're also terrified if enough people should find out about the conspiracy, that we would tear them from limb to limb. They have been persecuted down through history, and they are always trumpeting anti-Semitism and persecution down through history. I'd like to demonstrate why. No one ever seems to ask why the Jews have been persecuted. As I say, we have 35 million Christians in America who basically have blind support of Israel, because of the Israeli lobby in America is so powerful. They have a State Department there called AIPAC. The ADL is a slandering operation for anyone who criticizes the wickedness and the crimes of Israel. They have tremendous overpopulation or overrepresentation in the Congress. They have a similar overrepresentation in the British Parliament. And as I say, a 35 million voting bloc, Christian Zionists, me as a messenger, and basically they blindly support any of Israel's policies. In other words, the US is basically a puppet of Zionist Israel. It is a totally Zionist-occupied government. Europe is pretty much a Zionist-occupied situation as well. And they've got the US military and their NATO allies who are the muscle in this equation. And they are hell-bent on world domination and total control. Absolute total control, as Sean said earlier when I was speaking to him. And I have researched down through history in the last 2,000 years, and even from the time of Christ, these people have been behind so much wickedness and rewriting history. They control the media. There's a total blackout in the US media about the true nature of Israel. And it's not too dissimilar in our British media as well. So for anyone who needs any truth, we have to come to these conferences or go online or whatever. As I say, it's a complete monopoly. These people leave no stone left unturned, and the media is one of their big things. They also control a lot of the publishing houses. It also needs to be said that while it is a total global criminal syndicate, it is a satanic criminal syndicate. These people, well, when I talk to people who don't believe in God or don't believe in the spiritual realm like we're talking to, the fact of the matter is these people do. They know where they're getting their power from. So dark forces in the spiritual realm are very real to these people, and I think this can be manifested in seeing the power that they yield and exercise over the rest of us. And the head of the snake is the central banks. This is how they do it. They get control of the money supply, and they buy everything up, basically. We have a press which has its bank accounts and their mouths stuffed full of money. And they are basically career people who are participants in the conspiracy. In Eustace Mullen's book, In the Secret of the Federal Reserve, now Eustace Mullen was hounded for most of his life, as was his family, for exposing international Jewry. He, like anybody else, exposing the conspiracy, goes down in history as an anti-Semite. It seems to me, if you go down in history as an anti-Semite, you're probably quite a good guy or a good person, because they basically brainwash everyone through the media and define anybody who criticizes them and exposes the conspiracy as an anti-Semite. Now, this book says the Federal Reserve stock would be owned by private stockholders who could use the credit of the government for their own profit. It would have control of the nation's money and credit resources, and it would be a bank of issue which would finance the government by mobilizing credit in times of war. Now, this is very key, because the central banks know that there's no point lending money, to small fry. What they do is they lend money to governments to fight wars. War is big business. And through the media and through the propaganda, they create wars. It's perpetual war. Blood on the streets is big business. It's also satanic ritual sacrifice. Millions dying. Satan really enjoys this, or whoever your dark forces are. They enjoy this slaughter of mankind. So they keep, perpetual wars which means they can keep lending the governments money for these wars that our people go and fight in. Families are destroyed. They rewrite the history. We have a history. It's just World War I, World War II, which is all by design. And I believe they are planning soon for a World War III, which will be a nuclear war. We can see the NATO troops right now surrounding the Russian border and in the South China Sea. Einstein said, I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the Fourth World War will be fought with sticks and stones. Recently, Vladimir Putin, who on the surface of it seems to be fighting against the Zionists, he's a real problem for them. In Syria, they're trying to remove Assad. They can't quite do the same thing with Assad as they did with Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Libya, Yemen, etc., 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 all whole Middle East and beyond. He is a spanner in the works, and they are goading him, I believe, as much as they can. We see the persecution also of Putin's Russia with things like the politicized nonsense of banning the Russian Paralympic team. So the pressure's on Putin. He, on the surface of it, does seem to be resisting the Zionists. So they've decided to put NATO muscle all across the Russian border, and this is a very precarious situation. I did an interview with Gerald Celente on this recently on the radio show, and he concurs that this is unprecedented in recent times, and this is very, very dangerous. It's a nuclear conflict, and when they start lining up like that, all it takes is even one mistake could end up with a nuclear attack. Paul Craig Roberts and others believe that a nuclear attack is exactly what they want, that the US wants to invite an attack so that we can get the ball rolling with World War III, and that they can bring in their final sort of climax of the whole thing, World War I, World War II, and eventually, bring in World War III with a nuclear war to really terrify people, sort of a 9/11 on steroids, if you like, and really get us all under the caution, get us under control while they go, underground while it's all happening. They can pop up when it's finished and see who's left to rule. So, as I say, in the rationale of central banking, Vera C. Smith said, the primary definition of a central bank is a banking system in which a single bank has either a complete or residual monopoly in the note issue. A central bank is not a natural product of banking development. It is imposed from outside or comes into being as a result of government favors. And this is exactly how the Federal Reserve Act came into power in 1913, but clandestinely by backhanders and getting it through Congress. And in 2008, when Ben Bernanke was exposed for robbing the American people of trillions of dollars, his only excuse was that it's in whichever article of the Federal Reserve Act in 1914. And he is quite right. Legally, that was passed through Congress. It's a con job. But they can do what they want. They have full control of the money supply, and through that, they just buy up everybody. The judicial system, the Congress, the political institutions, they control the media, they control the legislation in our curriculums at school, they brainwash us with all sorts of stuff, and generally create a false matrix. So, I'm going to just quickly highlight, I want to talk about this as well, because the increasing rhetoric of anti-Semitism is getting increasingly aggressive and increasingly frequent. And to me, this shows their desperation, but it also reveals that more and more people are becoming aware of the Zionist conspiracy. We had the whole Naz Shah thing earlier this year, where she basically she basically said that the solution for Israel and Palestine conflict is to relocate Israel into the US, and the transportation cost will be less than 3 years of defense spending. Now, obviously, that was a naive thing for her to say in a public figure, because that was the end of her career. And she apologized, but that was just so they could laugh at her and, and still ruin her career. And as usual, we have, prominent Jewish Zionists coming out of the woodwork who we didn't even know were Jews before. We had Lord Levy come out and Juliet Neuberger come out, who she's a crossbench peer, and this is what she said. When Zionist is used instead of the word Jew, and you start talking about Zionist conspiracies and things like that, that's not about Israel, that's about Jews, and that's where you have to pick it up and really run with it. She said, using the word Zionism as another form of anti-Semitism, and it frankly cannot no longer be tolerated. So these people tell us what can be tolerated and what can't be tolerated. I think the Zionist conspiracy and the Zionist movement should no longer be tolerated by the vast, the rest of us, basically, which is huge numbers. So I'm just going to basically... Okay, no problem. All right, well, I can leave it there. I mean, as I say, it's just a quick shot in the arm. I just wanted to say that I'll leave it with this quote, because they like to say there isn't a conspiracy. But this isn't from some conspiracy theorist. This is from Winston Churchill. He says, "This movement among the Jews is not new. From the days of Spartacus Weishaupt to those of Karl Marx and down to Trotsky in Russia, Bella Kuhn in Hungary, Rosa Luxemburg in Germany, and Emma Goldberg Goldman in the US. This worldwide conspiracy for the overthrow of civilization and for the reconstruction of society on the basis of arrested development, of envious malevolence and impossible equality has been steadily growing. There is no need to exaggerate the part played in the creation of Bolshevism, which was the communization overthrow of Russia, and the actual bringing about of the Russian Revolution by these international and, for the most part, atheistic Jews. With the exception of Lenin, the majority of the leading figures are Jews." So I'll leave it there. But I could have went on. It's just quote after quote after quote after quote, evidence, evidence, evidence. Thank you.
This is a book by a guy called John Irwin. There's only about 10 copies I've got there if you wish it. This is part of a British military team, or a military team embedded within the British military in the Middle East in the 1950s. And what they were doing was they were trained in the original so-called super soldier. They were trained out of body. They were this particular individual died many, many times when he was trained over 4 days, and then was brought back into a situation where he would then be able to use his conscious mind to make use of a subconscious military training that he'd been given. The technology that he was exposed to was our ancient technology from thousands and thousands of years ago. And he was trained by, quote, "a strange-looking, very pale-skinned officer." Now, this is quite detailed, and this is the book. Now, the point about this is, and because I'm not doing my presentation, on the back of this book, you can see a pyramid. But there's a device on this that looks like an iPhone. But this is 1959. This technology is ultimately what John Irwin's team of individuals called the 16 recovered. They recovered 2 of these devices when they went into this place called Jarabah near Syria. This is interdimensional technology, data banks, holographic memory, whatever you want, of our past from thousands and thousands of years ago. Basically, what has happened is a predatory group of individuals, some have different names, but they mask themselves as human beings, and they are here to kill us. They're here to wipe us out, to farm us, to hurt us. And Kathy Morgan will be dealing with some of that on Saturday evening. She's dug up the actual names, the actual methodology within government, within the British Empire, right down to the transit of Venus, on how the British were able to calibrate their seafaring technology so they could propagate this ET race amongst us, which goes under a name that has just been discussed, which is here to destroy us, wipe us out, farm us, do whatever. This technology is human. It's thousands and thousands of years old, and it was recovered 60 years ago. And somebody's got it now. Right. Back to Max Spiers. Tajinder is a recent addition to Bases. He's running his sort of own research, Taj Research, I think it is. And I asked him to record all of these interviews which had been done on Max Spiers in Poland, of which we're going to see one of them. So Taj, if you could come here, I will then activate the controls. So as you can expect, this is pretty raw stuff. This is about us being taken over. We have a predator. We're being taken out. When everybody sees the engineering, the weather engineering, all the sort of things happening, it's down to a plan. But before I go on for a second longer, if there's anybody who wants to join Maria Wheatley's group, that's leaving now. So if you need to go and join Maria Wheatley's tour that you've paid for. Okay, Taj, if you could come up.
One of Max's interviews from Poland, and then I'm going to do an interview of Sarah Adams, and she's going to talk a little bit about what she's about her work, really, mostly. And that's about it. It was really good. I don't have anything prepared because Christine was supposed to be talking this bit. So we're just going to play one of Max's videos now. Can you put that up now?
Hello. Today we are meeting Max Spiers for the second time, and we'll be talking about incredible stuff. Hello, Max.
Hi, Alec.
Let's start with the topic of usefulness. Why we are talking about those nice stuff and not nice, and also traumatizing stuff. Why some people say that we reinforce the trauma in people. So, how much useful is that for the cleaning of this mess?
The trauma has happened. It's definitely happened. There are millions of people who've come forward and said it, and their stories from a line from all over the world. So it's like we know it's happened. Then the next step after that would be then to process the feelings and get them out, because it has to be done in stages. So if we're going to break down this paradigm that we're stuck in, this loop that we're stuck in, you have to do it in stages, steps, so the second step would be the first step would be to acknowledge the fact that it did happen.
Yes.
And then the second step would be it happened. Okay, now what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with dealing with it? I've forgotten his name now. You have to let me think of his name. But anyway, the principles of it is if you can design any drawing or any painting or any symbol that is put onto paper, then created and then given a charge, you can then turn that into a physical reality. You can turn that into a 3D physical reality. Betrayers of the galaxy. They'll say one thing to you, and they pathologically lie. I mean, lies are the easiest thing in the world to them. It's much easier for them to lie and have a false front than it is to tell the truth about anything. Yeah, so that's the way.
That's why maybe they
just wanted to clarify that one. It's good stuff, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about the background to the interviews in Poland with Max Spiers. Initially, he went out to Poland to do a conference and decided to stay there and do some work. He was writing a book and do some research out there while he was staying there with Madeline and Monica. Most of the interviews are quite interesting. I mean, Max talks a lot about many different subjects, really. The last interview he did, we're not going to play because it's basically, I don't know if anyone has listened to it, but it's he's fading like in and out of consciousness, and it's just a bit weird, is the only way I can put it. I think he was probably not well in his last interview, which was done 4 days before he died. And again, we don't really know the circumstances of his death at the moment, so I can't really talk too much about that. But we'll show one of the videos when we got it working, and then I'm going to do an interview with Sarah Adams, and talk a little bit about her work. We're not going to cover too much about Max unless she's wanting to talk about any of it, really. Basically, I run a channel called Taj Investigates, and I'm the admin for the Facebook group for Bases, which has about 5,500 members at the moment. I'm setting up a channel called Taj Investigates for targeted individuals, and I've done about 2 or 3 meetings at the moment where TIs can come along and share their experiences, really. And we've had probably about a dozen or so people come over the last 3 months. And it's basically pretty informal, really. You can come along and chat about if you think you're being targeted, either by the intelligence services, military, or if you believe you've been abducted by UFOs or been visited by any type of unusual, either alien or you believe to be alien. And we've had quite a few different stories. We've had a woman who is being followed about by UFOs everywhere. We've had a lot of people with very similar stories, really. Most of them have turned out to be adopted into families, either military or of the intelligence services, and then they have gone through certain programs such as we're familiar with Monarch, MK programs and that type of thing. And what I'm trying to work out really is what's the common ground to all these people. Why is one person being targeted and another person isn't? Or maybe everyone's being targeted but only certain people can remember it or have memories of it. All these people seem to be around the same age as well, in their 30s, 40s. So a lot of these programs which were started in the late 60s and 70s, such as the MK programs, those people are now sort of waking up, I guess. And so they have a lot of questions about what's happened to them, because they don't know, they've been, a lot of them have been abused as well as children. And again, we'll have to talk about the MK programs. The MK Ultra programs were mostly military, really. There's a lot of that stuff online. Most of you probably know about it already. But other than that, the people who come have a lot of questions, really, and I'm not really saying that I've got any answers, but I'm trying to work out a lot of stuff about myself as well. So this all helps me as well. That's really all I need to say about targeted individuals, really, at the moment. But we'll just wait for the video to play at the moment. So I don't know if anyone wants to ask me any questions about my work, but no.
Where did you say those meetings?
At the moment, the only meeting's in Reading. That's where I live. But we are trying to set up groups all over the UK. So if anyone here is interested in setting up a local group, then just come and see me, and we can talk you through the format of the meetings and getting in touch with targeted individuals and how to get together, really. Okay. Is the video ready, Miles? Sorry about it. Maybe you just want to take a break for 5-10 minutes, grab a tea or coffee, and hopefully we'll have the video ready. Okay, thanks, guys.
Hi, today we are with Max Spiers again, and we are recording only the voice because we don't have a good place to record the camera with the camera. Hello, Max.
Hi, Alec. How are you?
Perfect.
Perfect.
And you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yes.
Good. Yesterday you came back from Cyprus, and
yes, I did.
So what happened there?
What happened there? You know what happened there? It was very, 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 very hot all the time. It was very hot. It was. I'd never been there before, so it was a whole new experience. What I didn't know about Cyprus is that it was Richard the Lionheart's space, and that he had a castle there. Seemingly, Presidio was. Aquino was completely clean. He has no record of doing anything wrong. He was acquitted on every level of doing anything wrong.
Okay. So explain also who is Michael Aquino.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what. There are plenty more people out there now who know a lot more detail about this gentleman than I do. I just know him from his energy signature. I know him from the astral plane. I know him from seeing him on the astral plane multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to have a disdain for me. He doesn't like me very much. He knows very well who I am. I think that there will be at some point a showdown between him and I. I think we'll meet in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably have already, but within a month period of time, and having no plan whatsoever to even go to that country, and circumstances threw me straight there. I stayed there for 4 years. And I
Okay, break. Hello, today we are meeting with Max Spiers again for the third time. Hello, Max. We tried to record this interview a few hours ago, but then because we were talking about very uncomfortable stuff for some bad guys, they attacked you and we had kind of removal of your consciousness for some time. You felt bad, but now you are back. Yeah?
Yes.
So what did you feel? What happened? Please explain.
What happened? I mean, I think I disassociated, and then
but don't go into that state. Just explain.
and then basically that's what happened, and that I hate that state, and it's something to be worked on, and that's what happened.
Good. So now we're starting recording this again.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so again, I did say that I was going to cut it short about Max out of respect for the relationship I had with him, and he went through a lot, and I think that it's respectable to him and his family. I did speak to his mother a couple days ago, and she agreed that that was very good. I did create a list of things that I wanted to speak about. Many of these things I actually experience or have experienced. Alters, how they reprogram alters, how they make alters. Soul transferring, how they can transfer you from one body to another body. They just said in Science magazine that cloning is happening. China basically said that they are cloning animals and they can clone humans. This was in the recent news. Along with that article, I think it was in Science magazine or Science Alerts, they also said they can transfer consciousness. Basically with super soldiers, or what I call interdimensional soldiers, they can take you out of your body, put you into the clone body, use the clone body, basically send the clone body wherever they wish to, or even because when you do interdimensional work or interdimensional travel, the body takes hits. So they prefer to keep the main core body well and safe. So it's easy to create the clone bodies that are disposable. Once they're harmed, they can dispose of them. The main body is also used as a generator if very advanced. You can take over the clone body, but it's definitely very hard. I would like to do this in a sort of question and answer because I've got issues still shielding now, so I'd like to get my good friend up here and see if he can go ahead and do the list out of questions in a good way, and I'll answer them. I did have a depiction here. I don't know if anybody can see this. Let's see. Okay, so I've got, this is a tightrope. This is Bob. This is Bob the human, and this is a flea here. Basically, Bob, he can walk on the tightrope. The flea can go on either sides. This is the same thing with alternate realities. Just because you see one doesn't mean it's the only one. Other beings or other things can access others. So this is a good depiction that I recently came up with. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me clearly? Yeah. That's good. I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Apparently your microphone's a bit too far away from your mouth. Can I just adjust it?
Yes. Thank you.
Hopefully. Right. If we can just try testing that.
Yes. Okay. Is that better?
I think we can all hear. Hello. My name is Reichardt. I'm a friend of Sarah's. We won't
It's like
need,
my adopted uncle.
we don't need to go into my background, but she has some questions she wants me to ask her that she can then expand on and elucidate, and I can keep the thing moving forward.
Yes.
So we're
And
going to
I
talk
use
about
you to
alters.
ground. Yes.
Right. Can you start off then talking about what you mean by alters?
Okay, so alters, they can create them a couple of ways. They can go into your mind and put you through trauma while you sleep, and literally create alters like that. It's happened to me. It's really traumatic. You really have a blur between this reality and what's happened to you. They will do things like drown you. They will do things like torture you until a piece of that energy information splits off, and they create an alter like that. For the highest or the best spies, including, let me explain to you the newest way of spying. First of all, if you tortured somebody, you could get information out of them, right? But if they had an alter that was a spy, they wouldn't even know it's there, and they can use that to spy. They can send that person anywhere, and that person doesn't even know why they're going there. They're simply going there because they're sent there, and that alter in them, it picks up the information. So this is the newest and latest technology in spying. The more alters they can create in a person, the more that person's invincible. Because when that person takes a psychic hit and one alter dies, let's say they create 30, 40 in a person, you had to kill that person. For other psychic assassins or people like that, or spies, to kill that person, they have to kill all of those alters. That makes sense? Because those alters are very much energetically enhanced. Basically, I think from what I went through and from what I saw Max go through, I believe this, and Casbolt too. For me, the trauma of the alter, when they create the alter, was very hard for me. I had to sort of go above that and go connect literally and sort of merge them. This took a lot of work. I think it's really, really hard to tell if somebody has an alter or not. For the highest or the most advanced spies, or whatever you want to call them, or interdimensional soldiers, it's really, really hard. So for them to basically find out if you have an alter, they have to put you will only release it if you're in trauma. So you'll get if you're in an emotional situation, that alter can come out. I know I had it once where somebody at a friend's place kept being pushy-touchy to me, and I was really upset about that. And suddenly I just hit them very, very hard with energy, and they went flying back. It was an alter that did that out of defense. I think that a lot of gifted people are being used for this. I do believe that they are targeted for the different abilities so that they can be used, because there's a Cold War going on. And this is another thing. Other than the ET war going on, we also have a spy war going on between different countries. So basically, creating alters And these altars can go interdimensionally. They can also fight psychically. They can read minds. They can do all this stuff. And hiding it, they can hide it in the local drunk and an old lady. It depends on how that person's psyche, how strong it is. The stronger the psyche, the better. You know why? Because they can actually create pieces of altars, because most of them that they create, they sort of defect. They die very quickly because they're sort of shattered. Does that make sense? Their body can't put up with it. So that's why they also enhance a lot of the ones they're using as psychic spies.
Thank you. That's very interesting. But you've also talked about creating altars through stress, through trauma. How does the use of drugs come into that?
Okay, so drugs are good. Casbolt said how they use certain drugs to sort of get information out of people. It's very interesting that what Max went through, and it's also interesting that when people have a lot of drugs, they sort of go through frequencies really fast, or through altars, I've noticed. So they'll switch very quickly through the different altars. So somebody who's had this happen to them, basically if you want to get information out of them, lots of drugs would be used. And also they can actually go into your mind and induce certain chemicals to be let go inside of you so that they can also access you. So there's a whole war going on with that.
So can they actually take over an altar, for example? If I was an agent from another side, and I was dealing with somebody with altars, I can use drugs to not only access those altars, but reprogram those altars.
Okay, so basically,
take them over?
If I was in a compromised position and I was given drugs, and that would make me pass through different altars so you could access information.
Right.
Yes, that's the highest, yes.
Can I
Spying.
reprogram those altars, though, to actually then take them over for my own purposes?
You could actually drain them, and when you drain the vital life force of them, you would get all of the information in them, because when somebody who's a super soldier or interdimensional soldier goes for information, they pull energy from another person, read that.
Right.
Yes. Also, that's how they do it in the realms. They go up and down in the realms like that. They absorb that energy, and then they bring back the information from that energy. So whether they go to ET realms higher or lower, that's exactly what's happening.
Thank you. Good. Another question that you've asked about is soul transfer. What is soul transfer, and how does that affect with altars?
Okay, so we did that in Atlantis. We actually did that on other planets when all the planets were inhabited, as they just said. Venus, they said that Venus was inhabited. There's scientific evidence you will find very soon in the future that every planet was inhabited. There were great wars that broke out that simply destroyed everything. Back then, everybody was sort of immortal. They would transfer the body would live for hundreds of years. Basically, time did not exist, because on Saturn there's a time machine that has been lost there a long time ago that is being fought over. There's a hexagon. I went to the moon, I think it's one of the Titan moons. I forget the name of it, because I just don't live in time, and I really don't care about names. Names are our ownership, like we were saying earlier. Well, I went to this moon. I was trying years ago to go back to access the time machine on Saturn, or the machine that casts the everything. Basically, every planet was inhabited, and what soul transfers back then, well, I think, it's funny because I was explaining to a friend something about this, and then they said, you need to watch the new X-Men movie. So I watched the new X-Men movie, Apocalypse, of where they're transferring the soul in the beginning. Anybody see that part? Can they raise their hands here? Yes. Yeah. So they're transferring sets soul from one body to another. So this did happen on other planets, especially to beings who had a lot of information that they did not want to die. They were considered sort of oracles, or they were considered divine and gods. They did not want to lose them. So they would transfer them over and over again. The problem is that they would protect humanity, because humanity is a child race. Humanity doesn't realize everything they do, every thought that they do in other realms that they can't see. It makes things. So as you can see, Tutankhamun had a dagger that was in meteorite. Okay, everybody was speaking about this. I think it was maybe like 5-6 months ago. It was out in the news of why did he have a dagger in meteorite? Tutankhamun was one of the very ancient protectors of humanity. He would go interdimensionally and actually battle off a lot of the stuff that harmed humanity. The problem is humanity has huge issues right now. because basically their protectors are in big trouble. They're in their trouble because humanity has made so many thought forms, and not only that, there are other races who have sort of descended and are getting caught down in a lot of stuff. So there's nothing protecting people with those thought forms. Thought forms are, if you know, and this is my issue with black magic. It's a very negative thought form, and it creates negative beings. I think in Kabbalah or something, the Jewish religion, they talk about how they create whatever, something thought forms. I know I read about it a long time ago. Basically, the Egyptian royalty, they would keep humanity safe because they would remove any negative thought forms, but they had also evolved, came from many other planets. They were very, very ancient. A while ago they showed the what do you call it? The platform or the bed, the Egyptian beds that, what was it? Does anybody remember a while ago where they showed it was, what's his name?
Are you talking about the tomb?
The tomb where they showed the tech that they retrieved.
All right, the bed that he was lying on.
Yes, they retrieved. They showed them a while ago. Now, those beds, if you look at them, it's very interesting. They already know how they work because basically they just show them in X-Men. That's the beds they're laying on where they're transferring soul consciousness. So do you think they're not using those to transfer? Do you think they're not using all this tech? They basically have stole it from the protectors of humanity, and they're using all that tech. So the protectors are sort of hiding. They're not of human origin. They're of ET origin. They can still go in and out. But to protect humanity and help humanity, they've sort of been cut off from their own tech, and a lot of governments are using it. So there's a sort of a war between the ETs and the government factions going on. And then the governments have also opened portals to lower realms where things were locked a long time ago by these highly advanced beings. They were locked down there so that these things would not eat the soul energy of humanity. So we have huge issues with this going on currently.
Right, thank you. Can I just check, how are we doing for time for the moment? How much longer?
We're good.
You've got
Right.
about 15 minutes.
Right, okay. I was going to talk about how what you're talking about
Here, let's
was
go.
tied into demonic realms. What we call demonic realms, are these the lower energies,
Well,
the
those were-
footballs,
those
or
were
are
the
there something
thought-
bigger than that?
Those were the locked away thought forms, negative thought forms a long time ago that are being released now for power. Let me
Right.
see, let's go on to... Okay, so I did want to say is that before Max passed, I was fighting something, and a couple of years ago, at least 5 years ago, when I returned on a trip from New York to see my aunt in Dallas, I would immediately had where I was pulled to the moon, to the dark side of the moon, where they have many small pyramids. And it's very interesting because it's the Pink Floyd.
Dark side of the moon.
Yes.
T-shirt,
And it has
yeah.
the prism. And these small pyramids, they sort of, on the moon, they help keep this a prison planet because they absorb anything trying to pass the moon. They pull it in and then bring it back, push it back. I was pulled to the moon, and there was some sort of stone structure, it seemed like, very ancient stone structure, where it had Alpha Draconis in it. Now, they were doing a lot of sacrifice. They were even sacrificing their own who did not go according to the order. Now, where I come from, they've been in war with Alpha Draconis for a very, very long time. As humanity is being used as a farm, is being farmed at this instant, droned. They put things into people. What it does, it slowly absorbs their energy and takes them over until a person's basically a husk. The Earth is sort of like a planet for energy, for them to drone energy, for them to live because they do not have their own inner light. This happened a long time ago during the wars that happened. So I was pulled up there, and there was definitely an Alpha Draconis up there. He, probably around 14, 15 feet tall. They were doing a lot of sacrifice, almost sort of similar to the Mayan sacrifice that had went on. And they do this, he told me they do this once a year. They basically do this because they need to reap energy. They take a lot of people there, a lot of missing people actually go there. And I don't want to scare anybody because I do not believe in pushing the fair agenda, but this is something that I experienced, that I do know that this war and the war for humanity has been going on a long time. So I need to speak about this. He was explaining to me that they don't, access the higher chakras. So basically, they are a predatory race, and even predatory to their own. If their own tries to do anything that they don't like, they will destroy their own, so they destroy them. I had been battling with this thing for a while, and I had become quite obsessed with the series Underworld, because there's one of the characters in there that sort of looks like it with the bat wings and very pale Alpha Draconis. I do know that that was affecting Max before he did pass, because he was speaking to me about it. So right now, I think there is a huge fight for humanity between this more evolved species that, of course, are tied to the pharaohs and stuff like that, because they were ETs. They had come down here to help watch over humanity, and these other beings that want to keep humanity a farm and continuously farm their energy. The thing is, though, is that people can't see other dimensions because they don't have enough chi energy or prana force or life in them, because they're always vamped and it's absorbed. It's basically like honey to ETs, especially to the very negative ETs. It is definitely honey. So if you have enough chi energy, you can see other dimensions. This is why recently I've been doing a lot of promoting of people building up their chi energy. You can see other dimensions. I think there's a song called Alien, and he says that he says they haven't the light to see. They haven't the energy to see everything. They want you to think that you are simply in 3D. They do not want you to know that there's all these other realms exist, and that your soul energy keeps them alive. It keeps them, many of the negative species use it to keep themselves immortal, to keep themselves so that they can move throughout the realms, and so you can't. And this is a huge, huge message that I want to get across, is that everybody should try to build up their inner chi energy, their inner light energy, and as you do, and you can do this through a mass amounts of stuff, as you do, you will start to awaken more to the realms.
Right. Obviously you said very important, chi energy. Can you be more specific about what we can do to build up our chi energy? What sort of, is it to do with diet? Is it to do with posture?
Yes,
is it
everything.
To do with, okay, what sort of examples would you like to give me?
I don't want to explain it right now, though.
Okay.
I think that it's really good to try to build up your aura, build up your shields, and eat a lot of live foods, lots of nature and stuff like that, and build up your chi energy. Everybody loses it through bad foods, through all sorts of stuff. And now the transhumanist agenda going on, they're putting metals in foods. If you look at a lot of foods, there's stuff like aluminum and stuff, so that gets in your cells and it makes you a walking robot that's sort of cut off from higher energies or higher stuff, and then they're able to use you and drone you. So that's definitely already going on. I mean, we're waiting for robots to walk in society, but I think it's already happened. It's happened years ago when they started putting a lot of additives in food. I noticed there's aluminum and all sorts of stuff, and it makes you a walking cell phone tower too. Basically, you pick up everything.
I mean, certainly when you've been living in the States, something that I've got very clearly is you're very concerned
about the United States. Yes, because the United States seems to be the most lowest point of energy place I've ever been. I know it's a harsh statement to say. When I was over there, I was being beamed by all sorts of stuff. I did come up with, it was called the woodpecker, which is Russian, to be derived, it comes from Russia. So I was getting that. Everybody seems to be in sort of a off mode, especially middle America. It's very insane. It's almost like zombie, it's almost like a zombie movie. You're walking around, people just in the supermarket are all strange and stuff. And there's some sort of heavy mind warfare tech being used on the Americans right now in the United States.
Okay, thank you for that warning. What else would you like to talk about on your list of questions?
I think we're nearly done. Let's see. Oh, I still have this. Okay, let's see. Oh yes, I wanted to add that they're no longer traveling in space with spaceships or whatever is not their main objective this instant, but their main objective is interdimensional travel, where they can travel much faster, better, and they can also retrieve ancient tech from there, with which they're trying to bring back here. And not long ago, they attempted to bring something back here, and they had a sort of Stargate machine, and they were trying to pull it through that Stargate machine, and it wasn't coming out quite how they wanted. And they were using a whole bunch of people who had created altars to try they had sent there to try to psychically bring it, because okay, I can go into somebody's consciousness by seeing a picture of them. I close my eyes, I concentrate on it, and I tune the frequencies up and down till I find the exact frequency that matches their face, and then I can read that frequency. Do you see how that happens? Well, they send people interdimensionally, the interdimensional soldiers, to that point where that tech is, because there's a lot of ancient tech hidden by ETs and everything in the realms. They send them there so they have the conscious imprint, blueprint. Then they bring them back here, and then they have them all concentrate to sort of teleport it back into this realm through a Stargate. And they tried to do that recently, and I intercepted that. They also, when the Earth shields went down, they tried to pass something, and it passed 80%, and I intercepted that too. I'm not sure. I just knew it came in at 80%. They wanted it at 100, but came in at 80.
You stopped it.
No, I just intercepted that was. Okay, talking about religion. I wanted to add this in here. There's a lot of locks on sacred teachings. That means that all religious books originally are very high advanced ET writings, first of all. I mean, we can connect ETs to angels, to the ones who wished well for humanity. Of course, everything's been reversed and changed. Basically, Israel, it was never meant, all this stuff was never meant by a literal nation, for a literal nation or literal people. First of all, you have the book of Genesis, Gene Isis. God says, I am that I am, is, I am. So the saints of God are not people in religion or anything. They're the ones who are fully awakened. They're the ones who have become I am. So this is who have awakened the God gene, and there's a lot of research on the God gene of how there are people who have the God gene awake. So the saints and the sacred people are not the ones who are in some nation or who are in any religion, but those who are awakened. The Catholic Church knows that the pineal gland, this is why the Catholic Church and all religious leaders, the top religious leaders, they know exactly what's going on, and they want to keep everybody as cattle because, well, they're in cahoots with the negative factions that are siphoning off humanity's energy. Basically, they know that the pineal gland, and that's why there's a lot of places I've traveled, I always see the pineal gland in statues or whatever, basically making fun of humanity that, yeah, the thing is that the pineal gland is what awakens you to the dimensions, awakens you to God and connects you to God, and they've suppressed that. They've made you think this is about nations or about religion when it's not. It's all about lighting up the junk DNA, all sorts of stuff, lighten up your pineal gland. It's about for humanity to become, again, multi-dimensional, of which they lost a long time ago, of which many great civilizations like Egypt, if you look back, they were multi-dimensional. They were lit up. This has been lost, and this is being suppressed. And religion is a great way to get everybody's energy and keep them closed off again and keep people cattle.
So it's a balance between dogma, which is the belief
and
that
symbolism.
people being enforced on people, and the enlightenment where individuals then become aware and powerful and access.
They don't want you
energy
to access your godhood. And this is a very, for a lot of people, this is probably a very controversial state to say. Why? Because they want to stay as gods themselves, and they do not want you to access that. This is why they hide all the secret teachings, all the sacred teachings in the vaults, in the Catholic vaults stuff. They do not want you accessing any of this. All of the main religious leaders, they all are in cahoots with one another. They all know this. It's very hidden. It's also the symbolism. I was speaking earlier about the symbolism of the monarchy symbolism, about the crown. The crown was meaning to be connected to the higher realms. The crown jewel was meaning to have the third eye open. But people now, they're like, oh, it's because a king's wealthy. So, the crown represents them being wealthy. It doesn't mean that. Originally, it was given to say this person can give good instructions to humanity to help uplift them because they have their third eye open, because the crown, the gold, represents the connection to the higher realms, to God. Yes, but so it's very interesting of how symbolism actually tells the truth in the end.
Thank you. Right. I actually just think we're coming to the end. Is that right, Miles? Do you want to?
Okay, I'm just going to ask a...
Okay, Tad?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just going to run through a few questions with you.
Stop mumbling on the stage, please.
Okay, Miles, okay. I'm just going to run through a few questions with you because some people may not be familiar with your work. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, can you just give like a brief description of what you do and how you help people?
Okay, my work. I really don't, I do a lot of work interdimensionally and stuff like that, so I don't really care about doing too much work here in the 3D because for me, my sole mission is to do that. Of course, Max is more outgoing with this, as I'm not. I keep a lot hidden for specific reasons, but I would say of doing this sort of work, I'm just encouraging people to awaken to themselves, and that's it. As for my work, I do jewelry. I have a very lovely aunt in a wheelchair, and I stay with her in the United States, and she has her jewelry business, and she creates a lot of jewelry. So basically, that's my real work right there. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to talk a bit about soul contracts, relationships, or karma, because I know you help people with that type of thing as well.
Okay, everybody on Earth is soul contracted anyhow for many generations back. This is an issue. I was explaining to somebody the other day what you do. If you do something very harsh or very bad, it can go down to your children. Your children will have to basically take care of that. So you might want to watch your actions. I think it's very important to. Okay, for soul contracts, you can, if you build enough chi energy or prana energy, you can actually travel back and disconnect those. Sometimes I had to travel back over 100 years for one in my family, so it does take some time to get rid of soul contracts. You can also do soul retrieval soul energy retrieval of where you go ahead and you, like I said, your mind is very powerful. Again, you can go ahead and start to pull that energy magnetically to you, and you can retrieve it like that. You have to believe it, though. That's the problem. If you don't believe it, it's not going to work. As for relationships and karma, well, I've known Max from other worlds, so I guess I don't want to speak too much about that one.
Okay, no problem.
Actually, I will address something that somebody said about me doing black magic on Max's quote when he was quote died. I did do something that, of course, as I just explained about soul transfer energy. What I did is, when they had Max, I demanded that they put a couple of candles and a wine, which represents blood, milk, and water. Those are for three forces, by the way, that are very important. I won't explain too much about this because of the fact that I keep a lot of things hidden because they can be used negatively. So basically had them put them in a pyramid around Max and draw two hearts on a paper and put that on him and a bit of blood. Now this is so to allow Max that if he did want to come back or what he wanted to do, how he wanted to transfer, that he was able to do it, that he was not stuck. This is something, of course, that is depicted in the new X-Men movie, I've noticed. So basically I was doing something from Egyptian times of when I knew him, allowing him to do what he wanted so his soul would not be stuck in certain places.
Okay.
Because it's essentially I can go into other people's bodies. It's happened to me lots of times. I often find myself in people's bodies that are in trouble. People are tied up. People are in trunks. One time a girl was in a trunk in New York. I was suddenly in her body. She switched into mine. I had to find a way out of the trunk. As soon as I did, she was safe around the corner. I was released from her body. So.
Okay, you talk a lot about the astral, and a lot of people don't really understand the astral. Can you sort of give an explanation of what the astral is?
Because it's hard to explain a lot of other stuff in words, as in where I come from, they don't have names. It's
Right.
simply a feeling, which is very lovely. Okay, so for me, astral is the realms, and I'm probably just trying to use that word so that other people understand it.
Okay.
It's the best word for them to understand, 'cause I think.
Can you give any advice for people who are thinking about trying astral travel, or how they would do it?
I think everybody can do it. I just think that like I said again, they've been raped of their multidimensionality, and everybody can do these things, and it's meant for them to access all the realms originally. That's what I know, and that's what I feel. So I think, though, that before focusing on astral projection, that you should focus on building up your chi energy and on doing lots of healing, because a lot of people do not have all their soul pieces. And yes, then you can access that. I mean, I don't believe in you doing any sorts of magic, mixing anything or anything like that. And of course, unless there's some essential oils to use as pills, because I do take essential oils internally, I do know that you can definitely put very strong crystals in a T-shaped and use it like that. It'll help you with astral projection if you're trying to experience that.
Okay.
But what makes you project is having a lot of energy, essentially.
Right, okay. Is there a difference between the soul and the astral body?
No,
Right,
there
same
is.
thing.
I mean, the body that goes interdimensionally and the soul, for me, it's the same thing.
Right, okay. And what happens if you're astral traveling and someone wakes you up?
Oh, that hurts. Okay, so it hurts really bad. So I usually demand that. I used to have a roommate, and I told her not to come into my room, and one day she said she saw flashing lights, so she went and opened the door, and it hit me, and I went flying back into my body. It felt like I was shattered in a million pieces, so it does hurt.
So that's physical?
Because it pulls you so quickly, the noise, it's the noise that pulls you so quickly from there here, and it like, again, I said, anything interdimensional, that's why they use clone bodies when they send interdimensional soldiers off to other planets a lot. It's because they can discard of that, because it does hurt the body. You have to have genetics to, if they're using you for that, essentially, to redo yourself. But basically, it can hurt you really badly.
Okay.
That's why it's good to learn how to do that really, really good. Otherwise, you get in trouble.
I know you're working with Andrew Basiago on
No, I'm
time
friend.
travel. On time travel.
What? We're supposed to do a show together. I think he still wants to do a show. I'll ask him. Everybody's asking for shows. I just prefer to stay at home and, meditate or stuff like that, or be with my aunt. So.
What made you interested in time travel?
Oh, I always, I wanted to find the person or the being with the oldest DNA on Earth, because I could touch an object and go through and see all sorts of stuff. So my thing was finding the person who had the oldest DNA on Earth, the first DNA, so that I could go, through them. So basically I found Max, and he had quite ancient DNA. But it was very years and years ago. I always try to find very old objects because I just like touching them and going through them, so I can see all sorts of stuff. And I've always had it happen. To me it's normal, so it's like interested. It's sort of like an everyday thing for me.
Okay,
I have ran into trouble with it, though.
How can people protect themselves from psychic attacks or attacks from entities?
Oh, vervainity. Vervain. So one day I was down in Broadstairs, and there was a very reptilian. He's a reptilian, actually can see people's true forms, and when you start to build up your chi energy, you can see people's true forms if they're not human, if they're something else. So I was having some organic food, because I basically tried to take care of my body very well, and I felt sort of sucking of energy, and I turned around, and there was this reptilian, and he was quite powerful, and I couldn't move my face away. It was sort of like he was like had a what do you in the bathtub where you have that so, and I couldn't move like that, and I knew that I was in a bit of issues, and he wouldn't let go. And I just swung my arm around. I thought, well, maybe the warmth from the tea will help me. And I drank it, and it let go right away. And then he seemed to be bothered with it. And I noticed it was vervainity. So I must have intuitively knew how to do that. So I went and searched online. And apparently vervaina or vervain was used for hundreds of years here in England against vampires.
All right. Can you read people's DNA?
Okay, Sarah? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think your mic's about to drop off, but in the last 5 minutes, could you give a summary, really? Is this mic?
Summary of?
Yeah, it's about to just check that the...
No, it's good.
Okay. That's it. Leave well enough.
Okay.
Right. Live television. We're also live to Project Ascension right now. They're picking us up in the United States, and we'll be joining them in about 4 minutes. Finally, can you give
what you feel has happened to our lost friend.
What I do feel is that I think that humanity should wake up more, because there's a lot of pressure being put on those who have been augmented and those who are not human, who are trying to protect humanity, who are also used like Max was. And they're trying to, I do believe that they're trying to use them to keep a lot of stuff from happening that's supposed to happen. We were talking about the 4 horsemen and whatever. I know what happened in the end is that I know Max was fighting off a lot of stuff, and I was having it happen to me, and I was getting very sick and ill because of it. I don't know where it came from. I know that they opened some sort of Stargate and stuff had come through there. I do know that there's specific factions from specific countries involved with this that I wish not to speak about, because I'm a bit like in Evelyn Salt, where she chooses not to take sides. She sort of does it on her own, for her own goodwill of humanity. I will tell you, as I know exactly what countries were using Max. I do believe that he did have an altar.
Would those countries involve Russia?
I think perhaps for the good, think I'd prefer not to speak about that.
You would prefer not to say, but I'm not held. We're going to have Valery Uvarov hopefully on Sunday.
But I know what I can do and what I can't do and what I can say and how far to go and how far not to go, despite everything. I mean, there is a certain person that Max kept. I'm going to say something here. There is a certain person Max kept talking about a name, and I will say that the last 4 people that said that name are dead. And they're connected to all of this too. I won't go there because...
Are we talking about a new world war in cyberspace or psychic warfare, multidimensional weapon systems?
Yes.
And that's what the super soldiers are here. I mean, Kieran will be speaking next after Project Ascension, but he has been told bluntly as a British soldier that he is fighting a war in many different dimensions.
Yes, this is what's happening. So whatever, Max regenerated very quickly. He always did. I spoke to his mom not long ago. He regenerates very quickly. Like I said, I regenerate very quickly after being sick. Whatever happened is that he wasn't regenerating how he should have been. And if you look at the pictures before from last year and now, you see he's starting to. If you do look at pictures before of me, of when I was having huge battles, I was looking very tired and sort of like deathly, but I was fighting interdimensionally. I was sort of stuck down there. So yeah, it's definitely happening all interdimensionally now. That's the.
Now, in that interdimensional war, just as we close, 100% annihilation of the United States. That's come from different
Well, there's a
sources.
new world superpower, which I cannot speak, and they have. This is why they wanted to split the UK off from Europe, and they also have specific candidates that are compromised. And they have been using their own time travel, sort of CERN of their own, so that they can become the new superpower, but they're vying it off with one other country.
Now, I've been informed that one of the techniques used on Max was to extract his soul for a ransom to sell on.
But it wouldn't be, it would be to, because Max is different, it would be to that because he's so precious. He's very lovely. So in other words, apart from all of that, there's also Max, who was very ancient, very old, yes.
Okay, well, that's all we got time for now. Thank you very much, Sarah and Taj, and the folks in the United States who are joining us now. We're going to have a very short break, and we will go live with Project Ascension in about a minute or so, 2 minutes, and we'll just get the audio level sorted. As you know, we've had no problems with the sound today, and we'll just get that live on the screen and make sure it all works. Thank you.